Welcome to the Secrets We Keep podcast. This is a space for honest conversations about trauma, survival, faith, self worth, and what it really takes to leave survival mode behind. Before we begin, I want to say this gently. This podcast reflects on real life issues and experiences, but it's not a substitute for diagnosis, therapy, or emergency support. If you are in immediate danger, please contact local emergency services, a crisis line, or a trusted support resource in your area. And one more thing before we start today's episode includes discussion of emotional abuse, control, trauma, and the patterns that can keep people stuck in painful relationships. Please take care of yourself while listening. Pause if you need to, step away if you need to, come back when you are ready. If you hear, if you are here because something in your life feels heavy, confusing, exhausting, or familiar, you are not alone. I'm really glad you're here. People often ask the same question when they hear about abusive or unhealthy relationships. Why do women stay? It sounds simple when people ask it. Sometimes it sounds like curiosity. Sometimes it sounds like judgment. Sometimes it sounds like frustration. But very rarely does it sound like understanding. Because what people usually want is a quick answer. They want something neat, logical, easy, but staying is rarely simple. People ask, why didn't she just leave? But they do not ask what happened before the relationship began. They do not ask what love looked like in her childhood. They do not ask what her body learned about fear, silence, conflict, and survival long before anyone ever called it abuse. And that matters because staying is rarely about wanting pain. Staying is often about survival. Abuse does not usually introduce itself as violence on day one. It does not walk in wearing a warning label. It often arrives as intensity, as attention, as feeling seen, as feeling chosen, as a connection that feels powerful, especially if you've spent years feeling invisible, emotionally starved, or unsure of your worth. That is what makes it confusing. Most toxic relationships do not begin with fear. They begin with connection. And when connection has been missing from your life, it can feel like oxygen. A lot of people assume that if something is harmful, we will naturally leave it, as if danger is always loud, as if pain is always obvious, as if the nervous system always knows the difference between what is healthy and what is familiar. But trauma does not work like that. Trauma can rewire how we understand safety, love, and threat. It can blur the line between what is peaceful and what is familiar. So if chaos has always lived close to love in your life, peace may not feel safe at first. If love has always been conditional, steadiness may feel boring. If abandonment has shaped your story, intensity may feel more convincing than consistency. And that is where people get trapped because the body can become attached to patterns that the mind knows are harmful. There's often a cycle: affection, tension, explosion, apology, relief. Affection, tension, explosion, apology, relief. And that relief can feel like love. But many times, it's not love. It is the temporary release of fear. That is one of the hardest truths to explain to someone who has never lived it. Logically, people may say, just leave. But emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, leaving can feel like withdrawal, like panic, like losing the very thing that helped you survive, even if it was also hurting you. That is why people stay. Not because they do not see the damage, not because they enjoy pain, but because the cost of leaving can feel unbearable. And here's another truth we do not discuss enough. Many people do not lose their self worth inside abusive relationships. They enter those relationships with their self worth already wounded. Low self worth is not a character flaw, it is often the result of unmet needs, emotional neglect, abandonment, inconsistency, criticism, instability, or learning early that love had to be earned. If you grow up believing that love requires endurance, sacrifice, silence, or pain, then you may not immediately recognize unhealthy love when it appears. You may normalize it, you may excuse it, you may work harder for it, you may stay longer than you should. Not because you are weak, because familiarity has gravity and survival is powerful. Then there's fear of retaliation, fear of financial collapse, fear of losing your children, fear of not being believed, fear of being isolated, fear that leaving will make things worse, fear that maybe this time the apology is real, fear that if you just love harder, explain better, pray longer, endure more, something will change. Hope can keep people alive, but hope, when attached to harm, can also become a cage. And for some people, there are even more layers: fear of being outed, fear of losing family, fear of losing faith community, fear of having nowhere safe to go, fear of being judged more than protected. Abuse does not discriminate because access to safety often does discriminate. So maybe the better question is not why do women stay? Maybe the better question is what has this person survived before this relationship? What did love teach them? What are they afraid will happen if they leave? What has been normalized in their body for years? What support do they actually have? What would safety cost them right now? Those are better questions. Those are human questions. Those are compassionate questions because no one knows what came before the relationship just by looking from the outside. No one knows what was molded in that person's home. No one knows how many times they tried to leave. No one knows what threats were made. No one knows what they would lose. No one knows what they are carrying silently. So when we ask shallow questions, we often deepen shame. But when we ask better questions, we make room for truth. And if any part of this story sounds familiar to you, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not weak. You are not stupid. You are not broken. You're not choosing pain because you enjoy it. You adapted. You survived. Your mind and body learned what they had to learn to get through what you have lived through. Awareness is often the very first step. Understanding is often part of freedom. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is simply begin to see clearly. In the next episode, we're going to talk more about love, control, confusion, and how trauma can distort what feels normal in relationships. But for now, I want to leave you with this. You are not weak, you are surviving, and surviving is not the end of your story. Thank you for spending this time with me today. This is the Secrets We Keep podcast, where silence ends and healing begins. Until next time, take care of yourself, be gentle with your healing, and remember, protect your peace, speak your truth, and keep choosing healing.